Yeah, so the recording has started. Okay, great. So I can see that we have Ritesh sir and Mr. Vasant Rotela here. Uh, but I'm sure that as we progress, we'll have more participants coming in. So for now, welcome everyone to today's IRMAN Talk session. Thank you, Shubham and Love, for joining this session, for making it possible. I'm so excited for today's session. I've already heard so much about it from both of you, so really looking forward to it. A very quick intro of Shubham, the speaker, and Love, the moderator for today. From technology policy to sustainable development to branding for impact, Shubham Tomar from PRM 32 wears multiple hats. He has worked with some of the foremost science and policy experts in the country, and right now he's with the Tony Blair Institute for Climate Change. And today's session is focused on branding for impact, and I really look forward to it uh, uh, and to gain some practical understanding of the various branding tools that are necessary for the development space. The session will be moderated by Lav Bhardwaj. He is from PRM 36. He is a public policy practitioner who has worked with multiple ministries with the Government of India and the UN. So thank you, Shubham and Love, once again for joining us. And over to you, Love.
Thank you for providing this platform, IRMA Alumni Association, and I'm welcoming all the platform owners and Shubham, my senior, to this icon talk. And Shubham and me, I think we go back together. Basically, the time when I was going to join Niti Aayog, I was talking to multiple people, and one of them was Anupama Tripathi, and she mentioned to me about Shubham Tomar, and among various people who are working as specialists and consultants to the government. So he has had his journey to from various ministries to Invest India to now Tony Blair Institute, and he's working with government of Uttarakhand currently. Incidentally, I am also working with the government of Uttarakhand with Setu Ayog, which is the state planning commission, and we happen to work out of the same secretariat at Dehradun, and that is why we also keep connecting and discussing a lot of policy discourses, and that's how we know each other and our friends. So, a brief introduction about our speaker today. Shubham Tomar has been a public policy practitioner and an ardent impact professional. With his journey spanning over a decade post IRMA, he has associated himself with designing the country's skilling paradigm to the investment and scientific research in the policy sphere. He has a story to tell, and like most of us, he has a passion very close to his heart, along with being a rural manager, like most of us here. The passion is of curating and creating brands and brands for impact. Today, he's going to share with us the narrative of building and sustaining successful brands and the role these play in the overall impact scenario. So, my first question to you, Shubham, after welcoming you, would be we would like to listen in from you about your early experiences, including the ones at IRMA, and the overall journey traversed in your pursuit towards impact. Shubham, you're on mute.
Should I start presenting and I'll have the questions addressed after that? Okay, sure. Let's share my screen.
So I think Shubham, it'll be great if you can touch upon your early inception years at IRMA and how did it frame the current the story that we're going to tell today, and how were the formative years. If you can touch upon that, and then we will.
So, my experience of being in media and communication, it has been about 7 to 8 years now. I've been associated with a lot of organizations in my career so far, in both in national and national context. Right when I started IRMA, I realized that I had a knack for creating for creative collaterals, if you can ask, if you can say that. So, but when I passed out of IRMA, ultimately when I reached Columbia in New York, I realized that this knack for creative output should be channelized somewhere and should be used if you can do it creatively for the clients out there. So That is where I specialized. My second specialization in Columbia was in media and communication, and that is where I learned a lot of concepts which I'm going to share about. Since then, I'll say I've been privileged enough to create about 7 to 8 different brands, apart from the work which I do in research and policy. So this presentation which you see here is going to cover my own experience, and I think as we move forward through the presentation, you'll be able to understand a lot more details about creating brands for impact.
Great, great. So I think
Not
we'll
this
we'll want to
introduction.
listen in from you. So just an add-on question that you've always considered branding as the key to achieve outcomes and creating domain agnostic impact. So can you touch upon what do you think branding is and how you have created outcomes out of the brand that you work towards? Thanks.
Yes, I'll say in the non-profit sector, if you start thinking of creating a brand, in countries like India, my experience says that there are not a lot of people actually start thinking about creating a brand in this sector. So it's always a limitation. But if you ask me, branding is very, very important. It cuts across various disciplines, and the most important point would be if a brand is created properly, the resonance goes a long way, if I can say that. Quite important to have strong brands in the impact sector. And as I go through the presentation, I think I'll cover the different aspects of what I consider is important for branding and for impact. So should I go ahead if you have if you permission
Sure.
to go
Over to
ahead?
you for the presentation, Shubham. Everybody is eager to look at the presentation. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Love. So there are 3 points which I would want to cover today. First is the modern understanding of brand, or what, as Love was asking, what do I think of brand? Then I'll talk about the second aspect, which is about branding and impact, how they cut across, and what my perception is on branding and impact both. And then eventually, I would want to have I'll say, a practical cheat sheet for any person who is interested to create brands in the impact sector. This is going to be very practical. The idea is not to give you a lot of theory. The idea is to enable you to at least start thinking of creating strong brands whenever you have the opportunity to do so. So we'll move forward, and the first part is going to be a modern brand. So what is the understanding of a modern brand? So since the inception of branding, this has been the brand model, if you can say that, for the initial 50, 60 years. This is how it was. We were thinking about brands. So there was a company which was creating a brand, which was attracting customers, and then customers, when they sustain, ultimately lead to the growth of business for a company. So this was the old brand model, where communication channels were different, technology was very, very different. So, but with the advent of technology, I think this has changed completely. Now, if you see, company is creating customers who are building their brand. There is a complete reversal here. If you can see, it was company initially in the old brand model was creating a brand and then the customers, but now customers are created first, and the customers eventually, through a lot of ways, they will end up creating a brand. This has been possible because of a lot of technological inputs available and technology media available for us. So this is how branding has changed significantly. I just have a question for you. Which one do you, when you go to a superstore, which one do you think you will be picking up, right? If you go to any, let's say, any supermarket, you will understand that whenever you have an option of choosing a toothpaste, you will not end up selecting, in fact, not even consider 10 to 12 different options of toothpaste. So you never do that. The idea always is to just go to 2 or 3 different brands, and most of the time you will always prefer the brand which you have been using for quite some time. But even for consideration, you will not be considering multiple brands to make the final purchase decision, even if there are 10 to 12 different brands. So this is key. Even for to make that buying decision, you will not be considering a lot of brands which are already available in front of you. This talks volume about brands. You are not even deciding. You are not even considering brands which are weak, in your opinion. So there is a consulting organization called Interbrand. I don't know if you are aware of that, but I will just give you an idea of what Interbrand is. So it's a leading global brand consultancy firm, and it does brand analysis at a global level. So you can go through a lot of reports which the organization publishes. In this, you will find the list of top 10 brands in the world. And the most surprising part is most of the companies existing in the top 10 brands are companies like Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft. These are technology companies. These are manufacturing companies in large industries which are producing something technology. So these are technology companies. And when you think of it, you realize that technology companies have a lot of brand perception included in them, and that is what gives them the value. So the reason why the valuation is so high for these companies is because of the inherent brand value. Even if you go to Interbrand and if you start analyzing the brand standings of these famous brands, you'll definitely notice that a lot of valuation which has just been offered on the premise of a strong brand which people have been able to cultivate for some time. Now, when you think of all these aspects, what is a brand as per me? Okay, so this is something which is very simple and easy to understand. You will find a lot of definitions, but this is a definition which I came across, and it really hit me, and it really is simple to understand. So, a brand is a person's gut feeling towards a product, organization, or service. I aspects here. First is the gut feeling, and it is a feeling towards a product, organization, or service. So it's not only specific to a product or organization; it's the entire gamut of touch points through which your customer is going to interact. But ultimately, it's the feeling which you invoke in people. Very simple. You can give it a technical definition or whatever you want, but ultimately this is the gist of it. How What is the perception of feeling you create when you enter the market and you start interacting with the customers? In professional life, I've come across multiple places where there is a lot of confusion between important terms being used in this space of media and advertising. I would want to clear those differences today, at least for the audience here. So I'll show you a few images, and I think I'll do it repeatedly as well. But you will be able to understand what is, and if you are able to comment and unmute yourself, could you please tell me what differences do you see across these images? I would want to know that. So first is the image on marketing. Just observe this. This is what marketing is. This is telemarketing. This is PR.
Shubham, I feel there is a slight lag between the presentation and your speech. So can other participants confirm if we are still on the boy
Okay.
wearing the t-shirt, or has it changed?
No, it's still on that same image.
Yeah, there's
Okay,
still lag.
so I think we are still looking at the boy wearing the t-shirt where you're saying the person's gut feeling toward a product organization.
Yes.
So we'll have to wait. There is a slight lag there.
Sure. Have the slides changed?
No, not yet. Once it's changed, I'll let you know.
Uh,
Huh.
it's not changing. Should
Now we've
I?
come to what's the difference, where okay, there's
Oh,
there is
there's a big lag.
a female talking to each other. I think we're on that slide.
Very slow. Just slow.
So can I request Nivedita if you can share the presentation with her if she can change the presentation, if that way that works, or
Yeah,
Is the
I
screen
can do
visible?
that.
I think because Nivedita is the
Yes.
host, I think it will be faster if she changes the presentation. Just a suggestion.
No,
Just try.
actually, both of you are co-host as well. So,
Okay. So
but I can still do it.
let me open up the presentation.
Yeah.
Is my screen visible? Try share.
Shubham, I have a PDF version of your presentation, so I'll be presenting that. Is that okay?
Anything?
So I'll just quickly open it. Give me a second. Let me share. So is this visible to you?
Yes.
Can you see the slide
Go
skipping?
ahead.
So I'm on the marketing one. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So
you can
these
please
are
go
the
ahead and
figures
let
I
me know
want
whenever you
you to
want to
take a
change.
look at.
Yep.
So these are the figures I want to take a look at. There is a lot of confusion amongst these terms. This will be clear when you see the. I'm still not able to see your screen. Yeah, this is it. Yeah. So go through it. Just observe the figures what they're trying to convey. This is the figure on marketing. Please go ahead. This is for telemarketing. Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, this is PR. Go ahead. This is graphic design. Go ahead. This is branding. Okay.
Yep.
Revisit these images. It's more. That will be helpful. Just revisit the images so that people understand. Once again, right from the top. Right from the top. Marketing. Yeah. This is marketing. This is telemarketing. Mm. Go ahead. This is PR. Go ahead. This is graphic design. Yes. Go ahead. And this is branding. So now when you've seen these images, can anyone tell me what is the difference between branding and all other aspects we demonstrated? Anyone has any idea? What differences did you notice?
Do you want the moderator to speak? I think I have noticed it.
Sure. Please, why not?
So I think once you've planted the idea in the lady's head, or let's say the segment's head, where the positioning has happened and the idea is planted that the person in front is a great lover, as you're saying, right? So that is where the successful branding has been executed. That is what I feel.
Exactly, yes. Because Basant is also right on track there when he's saying branding is the consumer talking about brand. So if you see all the other images which I showed you earlier, most of the communication was being done by this individual when he was trying to, apart from peer, obviously, most of the communication is happening through this person, through the male who's trying to communicate it to the female here. But when you see branding, branding is not overt communication. If you ask me, this is an understanding which has been built in the mind of the lady for a considerable amount of time. And ultimately, if you have built a good brand, you will not be required to reinforce communication repeatedly. So this is something which you should take care of. Let's go to the next slide. I hope the confusion is clear to the people participating here. Talking about branding and impact, what my observations are. So, my journey with branding and impact, as I was talking earlier, started way back. And since then, I've come across multiple platforms where I have personally notice a few, I'll say, a few insights.
You can hear me, right? Hello, Shubham, are you there? Nivedita, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I think we lost Shubham. I'll just ping him.
Sure.
Is it?
Yes, you're audible. Yeah.
So, I want to participate. Do you think it's important to think of branding when it comes to impact?
Shubham, you're not really audible. You'll have to be a little louder.
Is it audible now?
Yes, much better. Yes.
So what I want is to know from you all, do you think branding is important for impact? Anyone of you who would want to present your thoughts? Yes. Seema ma'am says yes. Seema ma'am, what do you think is the reason for this yes? If you can unmute yourself, that will also be convenient.
This is a bit, I feel that it is very important to have some recognition. Otherwise, people don't remember things. General name is there, like if you say milk. Milk people, it is very general name. Okay. So there are so many brands. So if we know the brand, we recognize the brand, then people will know, yeah, say like Amul. Amul is a brand which we recognize very well, that milk products are what is marketed by Amul. So
True.
I think so. This is
True, ma'am. Yes. Anyone else who would want
I
to
think
share?
I have a couple of points if you allow the moderator again. Is it okay? Yeah. So the first point being that whenever you're talking about a development intervention and you want to add, let's say, if it is built as a good brand, then there will be more beneficiaries or the target segment attracted to it, and also the other stakeholders. So you can scale it up from there. That is number one. Number two, when you have a good brand, then the larger ecosystem looks at it with the perspective of a better quality intervention for delivering impact. So it has more backward and forward linkages. So these are the two things that I think is important for impact.
True. I think recognition, as Seema was saying, is something very, very important, and a lot of non-profits, when I see operating in India and also Southeast Asian countries and African countries, don't really focus on this aspect. So a lot of organizations who have been operational for a very huge period of time have somehow, and they are doing credible work, but somehow they have not been able to create a strong brand in the development ecosystem. So this is also one of my observations now. Love, could you please move on to the next slide? Yes. So these are some of the insights I would want to share with you all. Firstly, what I notice is branding is commonly in the development space. Branding is commonly reflected at a lot of customer touchpoints, but these are some of the most I'll say most prevalent ones, if you ask me. Pitches, websites, internal presentations, social media, and events. And all the non-profits operating in this space, and it's not only about non-profits, but any person who is trying to communicate with the wider community would be focusing on these, majorly would be focusing on these five elements. Please go to the next slide. Yes. First insight which I have is branding is subtler than you imagine. Okay, as I was talking about earlier, that it is not about explicit communication. It's about cultivating those feelings in a customer for a considerable amount of time, and then targeting those subtler aspects of the image which you are trying to create. Next slide. What started off in West has taken over the impact space everywhere. This is my observation. And now new organizations operating in India are also starting to take the space of branding very clearly. Non-profits coming up, philanthropy organizations coming up in the recent past have also showcased some knack for understanding brand development and then going ahead and creating a robust brand. So it started off in West, but now it is getting realized in the impact space. Next slide, please. Yes, and tangible and intangible results are visible, and this comes direct from my observation when I had created brands earlier, right in the beginning. The first brand which I created was Aceworx Global. If you can just use a different tab to open this link, Love, that would be convenient if you're sharing. Aceworx Global. You
Can
can
you tell me
just
so
use a new tab.
how do I spell it?
Yes, Aceworx ACEWORX.
WOIS.
ACEWORX.
Uh,
The ORX. Aceworks Global. Yes. Yes. So this is a brand of a fellow airman. He is from PRM 23 and he wanted to create an agribusiness aggregator. So this is the first brand which I created. and you can keep scrolling so that people are aware of what it is all about. This was done in 2001, and since then, I have come across people who have mentioned that sometimes
Oh, I think
site
there's some
itself
issue with
is.
the website. Just hold on for a second.
Sure, sure, sure.
It actually isn't working, so I don't know.
Should I share my screen
Yeah, please
first?
try
I'll
sharing the
share my
screen
screen.
because this is hung up. It's not moving. So if you can just share your screen once.
Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yes. And the fourth observation which I have is brands are today brands flow through multiple channels of technologies. Gone are the days when we're just focusing on print media, we're just focusing on a few digital pieces here and there. But now full-fledged digital collaterals are being used, and most of the time now, when I talk to a few clients of mine, they even say that print is not required, only digital circulation is required right now. So there is a complete shift of information which has happened in the brand now through multiple layers of technologies. This is important to understand. So these are some of my observations. Now I want the session to be very practical. So I do some tips for implementing some of my learnings to a brand which you want to create eventually. Use these as per your own judgment. I think these some of these tips are deeply derived from my own experience of creating different brands. So I'll share these tips with you. First, my request for you is going to be start thinking a bit differently. It's very important to think differently because branding the game entirely has changed. So I'll focus on the 80-20 rules. I'll just focus on these few important aspects of branding, which, if taken care of right from the beginning, will be you will be moving in direction. Obviously, there is room for improvement, and you will keep improving as you move forward. But if you start thinking in these directions, you will mostly be operating in a safe territory, if you ask me. So first is
Shubham, I think we've lost you. You can hear us. Love, are you there?
I'm there. I'm there.
Yeah, I think we've lost him.
So we have this question from Mr. Rautela. I think I'm going to oppose it to him once he rejoins.
Yeah.
is my screen. Um, is my screen visible?
Shubham, I think we can wait for your screen to be visible, but can you hear us?
I am able to hear you.
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
able
So
to
in
hear
the
me?
meanwhile, we have a question from one of the audience, Shri Basant Rautela. The question is, how can branding be measured since it is a tad bit amorphous? So can you please throw some insights on the same?
I'll say if you want to evaluate your branding efforts through a metric perspective, there are a lot of ways you can do that. Since I was mentioning about technology channels which are available right now, you will be able to find hardcore numbers for every platform if you can ask me, even for a website, even for a social media post, even for I'll say a web app if you eventually want to create to for your brand. So there are multiple avenues to track and measure the performance of a brand. But believe me, this is my experience that it takes time to build a brand. It takes time to build a brand, consistent effort, and it has to be done for a considerable amount of time. I'll say for about at least for my own estimate, it's about 9 to 10 months when I start evaluating branding. What is
Um, are you there? I think we again lost you. Shubham, can you hear us? I think there is a hiccup with his internet connection. He should be back in maybe 5 to 10 seconds. Sir, we've lost you again. I think if you can rejoin. So he's just joining in a couple of seconds. He's going to join through a different network. I'd also urge the participants to pose questions around branding and branding for impact if they have certain questions on their mind, so that once Shubham is back, we can then proceed with the questions. You can write your questions in the chat box, which is available, or in case you want to ask it directly, maybe you can raise your hand.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, now you're there. Now you're there. We can hear you. Just wanted to add on to what you were answering to Mr. Rautela's question. He also wants maybe some metrics. If you can give some examples of what are the quantum metrics through which a brand can be measured, or maybe proxy metrics through which we can get brand measurement. If you can throw your light on
I'll
that.
be covering that in the later part of the presentation. Is that okay if I take it later?
Yeah, that's okay. I think that should be okay.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, so this is the first observation which I have. A quick cheat sheet. You have to always start from a story. There are organizations who are operating in same space, different spaces, but sometimes you end up understanding that they are doing quite similar work. So I'll just give you an example of a brand which I've created. So you're able to just a moment. I don't know. Yes. So this is a venture fund which I created, the brand strategy of this organization I created about 5 to 6 months ago, and this is a substantially big brand to have come in the Indian ecosystem. When I was approached to create this brand, it was very clear that the founder of this organization, had an idea, obviously had a story in mind, but how to put it together, I think that was very, very important. So right from the very beginning, when I started thinking of creating this brand, the story part was central to my cause. It has to be essentially kept at the focus of your branding effort. Uh, Reason why I would prefer to do this is that humans definitely love stories. You must have observed when you people are good at storytelling, you have more interactivity coming in from there. The other part is when you think of story, it always will remain around and revolve around your reason for existence. Very, very important. Sometimes when you start expanding operations and start building a bigger brand, this is sometimes dissolved. So very important for you to keep in mind. And I would also say that try for a unique narrative to the extent possible. As I was talking earlier, there are multiple organizations who may be operating in your own same space. So I would want you to build a unique narrative to the extent possible. We can fine tune, we can create levels of differentiation later, but to the extent possible, try to come up with a unique narrative. Once you have the story, start thinking of brand archetypes. Is anyone aware of brand archetypes here? What are brand archetypes? If anyone would want to unmute and then give it a go. No? Okay. So let me see. Is my screen visible, right?
Yes, your screen is visible. It is visible.
So brand archetype is a very interesting concept, and it comes from a German philosopher called Carl Jung. Many of you may be aware of him. As per his analysis, it was quite clear to him that most of the stories and most of these stories' main characters can be categorized on the basis of these 12 traits which you see here. Okay, so most of the stories, most of the characters which you will weave into your stories would somehow lie in these 12 different categories. My practical experience tells me that when I start thinking of an archetype, let's say for hypothetically Nike, for example, What do you think Nike closely resembles with the kind of advertisements which these people have, the kind of branding effort, the brand they have inculcated for over the past, I'll say, multiple years? What do you think is the archetype which comes close to Nike's branding effort?
Could be Explorer, I think.
Actually, it's mastery. If you see, sorry, it's hero. This layer hero is represented by Nike, and you can see it in the ads which Nike plays. Quite evident, you are the hero of your cause, and that's the reason why you are just supposed to do it. You just do it. That is huge. I'll say huge inclination of Nike to create a hero archetype for you. So you have to start thinking of creating the right archetype for your brand. Sometimes when you start thinking of these 12 different archetypes, you may come across a conclusion that, you know what, my brand is not completely fitting in Explorer or not completely fitting in Outlaw. So you can club these two things together, but to give more clarity on the later aspects which will come to create a brand, I would rather say just focus on two to three different. If you want to blend these archetypes, two to three archetypes, not more than that. Otherwise, it will be very very confusing for the audience, and you'll not be able to rationalize the communication content as per the archetype which you select. Exactly. So the aim for archetype has always been that you can use these traits to create one discernible brand from other. That is very, very important. So you see, when I start thinking of a communication strategy, if I'm creating brand in the hero segment and if I'm creating brand in the rural segment, they're going to be completely different. The way I'll structure my content, the way I'll integrate, I'll integrate creatives and other things, it will just be dependent on the archetype which I want to eventually create. Now comes the third aspect, which is the finer aspects of brand. And I would want to demonstrate this through the brand which I created earlier, so that you are aware and also have a live demonstration of how it operates in real. So the finer aspects I talk about are brand vision, brand personality, and brand look. And most of the times when people think of creating a brand, are just focused on two or three aspects here, which is about the look of brand, the vision of the brand, or maybe sometimes people think of personality. But how to do it in real life and implement them so that something is real, I think you will be able to see this in the presentation. So let's start with brand vision. Very very important. You have a story in mind, you have a narrative arc which you want to develop. So now start thinking of a vision which you want to create, brand vision. Often you will find that if you have a solid vision, it ties every element of the story together. So when you want to see, I'll just a moment. If you see cover share, uh, you come to this part which is talking about the investment philosophy of this is the section and the vision of coverage, if you ask me. So this came up after a lot of consultation which I had with clients, clear conversations so I focused on that. But just a moment.
I think Shubham should be back in 15 seconds.
Yes. So yeah, so the brand vision is very important. It ties everything together. When you see it in Kavach, the investment philosophy here, it talks about all the major elements which Kavach wants to focus, weaving everything together, and it's a very clear argument of why you should be interacting with this fund. So this is the part which is very important. Having clear brand vision indicated in the story which you want to inculcate. Okay. And the other aspect you have to take care is that a lot of content is going to be generated from the vision which you have. Sometimes when I see brands speaking to each other, I have noticed the coherence of communication is sometimes lacking. So I would want a lot of content to flow from the vision statement which you ultimately create. Keep that in mind. As I was talking about, and I showed to you in covers, this is the vision statement which we eventually came up with. Now we talk about brand personality. A lot of people may be aware of the finer aspects here, but I'll illustrate them to just drive the point home. Combine archetype and story. This is very important. So let's say if you have a hero archetype and you want to combine it with the story which you have, brand personality is going to be the culmination or the mixture of both these things. This will also lead to an idea of how the brand should look and feel. Okay, once you have a vision, declared, you have a narrative declared. You will start getting an idea of how this brand should look and feel and operate in the real world. This is the most important aspect, if you ask me. To come up with a brand personality and then translating. And once you have the brand personality identified, now the job is to translate it into the different touch points your customers may face eventually. So we'll start with the brand look. These are a few things which I would consider to create a good brand look. So I'll start with the first. There are 6 elements to it: logo, palette, typography, animation, imagery, and nature of shapes. I'll start with the first one, which is logo. So I would want to know from you all first, what is your take on logo, and what do you think is a good logo eventually? Somebody can tell me. What do you think is a good logo? What makes a good logo?
So I think I'll take a look at it. So I think there is a given geometric dimension to how we recall certain figures. I'm forgetting the name of that geometric dimension.
Golden ratio.
Yes, yes. So that ratio, I think once that ratio is achieved and intertwined with given colors, set of let's say recallable phrases and alphabets, which is pertaining to that brand, then I think a good logo is delivered. That is one part of it, the recallability. Second, I think in terms of whether the logo carries the footprint of the brand in totality. Let's say if it is a green brand, so is there something which is to do with the green, not as a color, but let's say sustainability part to it. Or let's say if the logo is about some Himalayan state, are there mountains in the logo, or is there something unique which is to do with the mountain topography? So all these aspects define a good logo, which is again recall worthy.
Sure. Yeah. So you're right, Love. When you talk of recall, there, one thing to add there would be it's actually made just for recall. No need of explanation is required in a logo. What I've noticed in non-profits, especially in India, is sometimes when you start thinking of creating a logo, you'll add up adding a lot of unnecessary elements. Like for example, if an NGO is working on climate change, health, and child development, you will see all these elements coming and creating some kind of a concoction in the logo. The problem is that if you want to do that, it would have been okay, let's say, if it was a print media. But right now in digital media, it's so the size of the screens, it can also be very, very small. So let's say if you are using the website on a mobile phone, the kind of logo which you eventually have at the top is going to be very, very small, and it has to be legible. That is very, very important. Otherwise, the logo defeats its purpose. So I would rather recommend you that when you start thinking of logo, think of a very simple and memorable mark. The idea is to create a recall, no explanation, nothing is required. You can use this metric to evaluate logos of different brands. I think most of the famous brands have quite simple logo. And the other trend which I'm noticing right now with the advent of digital technology is that logos are becoming simpler. Even the evolution of logos. So even if you see the logo evolution of Google, you will find that logos are becoming more simple by the day. So simplicity has to be kept in mind, and this is only for recall. No explanation is required for logo. Now,
So we also had some suggestions which are very close to what Shubham was saying, which is, from IRMA Alumni Association, we had a memorable visual identity, which is of course linked to recall. And Seema Madam said that quick to catch the attention, like DTC logo. So I think it is
exactly.
pretty much in line with what you were saying, and we agree with Basant when he says the logo is not a brand; it is a symbol for the brand. So totally agree with that, Basant. Yes.
Yeah. So if you see Kavach's website here, you will be able to see the logo. Intentionally, I have kept it very simple. Okay, they wanted to invest in emerging technologies in defense. They wanted to go upward trajectory. So there's a story to it. You can go and explore the website. But my idea has always been to create simple logos. Now I'll show you something else. This is one of the other brands which I created. It's called Deebha. Again, you can see the same principle, right? Same simple logos getting used again and again. Talk of any established brands like Nike, Adidas in profit sector. Again, simplicity is required. So for logo, simplicity is the key, and you have to focus on that. Now let's talk about the palette which you have. I'm referring to the color palette. We all know that colors are quite important. They have a psychological appeal in your brain. But let me tell you one thing from my experience. Color often has the power to change the brand appeal in one single go. Okay, what do I mean by that? Let's say if I consider cover share and I want to do a major change or a major shift in the way how this brand is being perceived, what I'll do is I'll definitely choose colors as one of my major factors, palette which I'm going to use. Slight change in that will lead to a completely different identity, and it is quite shocking in my own experience. Just the change which the colors can do to a brand. Very important, and it has to be considered. So this is the spectrum of colors you will find. I think you may have come across this image. If you have not come across, then you can use this. So you have different shades. You have different emotions related to these shades. So a lot of time when you are thinking of creating a brand, you can actually go to this figure and then figure out where you want to place your brand. What is it going to do? And then you can choose colors according to it. Understand that when you are choosing colors, it is not only about choosing one or two colors in the digital space. I'll say it's always better to have a palette of options available for you. So, one of the examples where I would want you to easily go and check is this one. So when let's say if you're not good at color theory, you don't understand what colors go well together. So these are certain tools which I wanted to demonstrate. You can come to these places and then quickly generate the palette of your choice. Let's say, for example, if you want to do something with, let me explore. Yes, you see, I'm able to generate palettes right in just single click one. Yeah, and these all, and I'm very sure when these colors are used together, they'll create a very soothing harmony for you. So you can use this tool to create your own palette quickly, if that is there. Now,
So just one question, Shubham, if you allow.
yes,
Whenever you tell, so as you rightly pointed out, that there has to be a story that you're telling, and right logo, right color. However, when we're choosing a palette, every color in combination will have a different attribution to the given part of the story. So let's say
yes.
green can mean different things for different stories. Similarly, red can mean different things for different stories. So how do we go about choosing that? And that is a very difficult thing to do.
Yes, you will have different elements to your brand, but the important part is the vision part, right? Once you have a vision clear, as I was talking about, if you have clarity on your vision, you will be able to move forward with confidence in all these creative aspects. So, let's say, for example, in Kavach, if you look at the brand formulation of Kavach, you will notice it lies very clearly with the orange part. Okay, it was a new brand which was trying to draw attention. It was an emerging technology brand. It was optimistic, independent. So I chose orange just because of that. And apart from it, if you see the other brand the other color in the palette which I'm using, which is the black color, as you can see here. This is also, if you ask me, this is not completely black. This is a black in shade of an orange. Okay, when you do the designing part, when you create web UI UXs, you will be able to understand. But every color palette has a dominant color. In Kavach's case, it is orange. But and all the tones, even the black tones, are derived from the orange part. So it's very important to understand when you're creating a palette. So ideally, if you want to create a palette, focus on the brand vision element and then move from there. So you will be able to at least pick up a few colors which are directly related to your brand. I hope that answered your question, Love.
Yes, we have another question from Seema. With yellow is very popular these days. What is the reason?
Yellow is very popular because it is flashy. I can say that it is really flashy sometimes. But I don't know. Matlab, this is your observation that yellow is everywhere. But I've seen almost all colors getting used in different brands. It just depends on the sector which you are exploring. Technology firms would be mostly focused on blue. You will find emerging technologies company operate in the realm of orange to yellow. So all the shades are getting used. Maybe that it may you may have I'm not sure, but you may have considered only a few brands which are using yellow. But yeah, since digital technology is there and you have a lot of flexibility and the screens of devices have also improved a lot, so you have variation which can be addressed by technology now, and so the option of using different colors, multiple color palettes, vibrant color palettes has now improved. Should I go ahead?
Yes, yes, I think we can proceed.
Okay. So now we'll talk about typography. Okay. It makes a very strong statement. I hope most of you will agree. The reality of setting a type, now I'll show you something to you. Even when you think of Kavach, okay, you take a look at this. The font which I'm getting used is very intentional. It's very, very intentional. And now when I think of a different brand here, which I was talking about, let's say Deepha, okay, it's a very different font. These are, can anybody tell me what are the differences or technical differences which you see here? Let's say in this font and in this font. Okay, I will give you an understanding of how this functions. Okay. So there are two kinds of fonts available to you. In you open any typesetting software, be it Microsoft Word, be it Microsoft PowerPoint, you will find two different phases. One is a serif font, the other one is a sans serif font. Now, what is the difference? This is the difference. Serif here is the tail or the long tail which often accompanies the type ultimately. So you have always two options. One is to choose serif and sans serif. Now, often there's a concept which is used called font pairing. Okay, and I prefer using font pairing, and font pairing has been popular in the past 6 7 years. It wasn't because earlier I remember brands were using simple single font across their headline and body, but now what is happening since the advent of font pairing and this getting popular, there are options to pair fonts. Okay, and if you want to go into details and understand this, you can go to this particular site called typewolf.com. Let me just show you. Typewolf. Yes. You'll be able to go to this site and find the good fonts available right now which are trending, and you will also find good font list if you want to consider a font. So a very good list is available here. I think this is one of the best type repositories and sites which you can find. The option of choosing a font and reading more about it is always present on this particular site, so you can go into this topic detail here. But my idea is to have two different fonts which serve different purposes. Okay. First is the headline font. As you can see here, both these brands, I'll show you. In both these brands, there is a headline font being used and there is a body font being used. It's very important. Why do you think it is important? Again, think of it. It creates good visual hierarchy. When I'm moving my eyes on this content, naturally for most of the people, you will be reading, even if you're scrolling, let's say you are doing that quick scroll, you will be able to notice this text, which is the heading text, if you ask me. This may be heading 4 or heading 5, the level of it. But this is what we focus on. We end up pairing fonts to create that visual hierarchy. Now, what fonts go well together? You can go to Typewolf and get your knowledge there. But this is very important to consider when you're creating modern brands, just because you have the capacity and there are a lot of fonts available to you. But apart from it, typography can be used for, as I was saying, this is heading, and this is the body copy, which we call. Okay, this is the body copy which you end up using. So two different kind of fonts being used here. Understand this. Yes. Then the final aspect again is animation. Not a lot of people talk about this, but with the advent of UX now, animation is getting popular. Okay, and animation is present both in UX presentations and motion pictures. It makes things lively and demonstrates brand personality for sure. Now, how do you actually do it? That's how it is. So you see the interactivity now. Just take a look at how this interaction is happening. Okay, when I'm scrolling, all this is animation happening on this brand, and this is very deliberate. This is not something out of the hat. This is deliberate. I wanted to create a personality of this brand in this way, so I'm trying to animate in through different means possible. This time I'm trying to do it on a website. Same thing can be achieved in a motion picture. Same thing can be achieved in a PowerPoint presentation also. So principles are going to be used across media, and that is the good part about the animation field. It just makes it more lively, makes it more approachable, and recall values increase again. Now we'll talk about imagery. Imagery, I've come across multiple presentations, I'll say, where images are just being, gathered around from different places and put together in a presentation. This is not how it should be done. Even in imagery, there is a requirement of coherence. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean color tones, people, and the act which you are demonstrating in the picture have to be coherent throughout your collateral. Now, you can see it here. I have compiled a collection of pictures for you. Those are coming from, let's say, hilly states of India, but and focus on agriculture. But take a look at. Do you see some similarities in these images? They are different for sure. But what similarities do you see here? Observe the color tone of images. Very important. Since this is I was looking for images with a green tone. That is the reason why I have collected images which have a green undertone to them. Now, what impact does it create? It creates a huge impact. You see, let's say if I want to go here, and you see, look at the images which I'm using here. Here, you'll always find a tone of orange in this, an undertone of color orange, just because the brand is actually using orange as the main brand color. So that is the reason why. So now I have always made it a point that when I'm thinking of creating using images to create a brand, I always have to follow a level of coherency in my argument. And then I'll talk about shapes. Now, what do I mean by shapes? Shapes are used in forms of icons and design elements. If you want to see, I'll show you how fonts shapes are getting used right now. So this is one of the other brands which I've been working on. I'll just show it to you. Yes. So you can see the same principles getting used again. But look at the shapes here, the icons. I am customizing the icons just to reflect the brand color. One thing for sure. Apart from it, if you just look at the shape of the logo here, okay, it's precise, it's sharp. Even for coverage, it was precise, it was sharp. The arrow going upward. So that is always done intentionally. Sharp and clear lines often reflect something which is going forward, future driven, and a lot of things like that. So you have to understand and if you have curved lines, say, for example, this button, if you see the curves right here, they make things more inclusive, if I can say that. So if you want to make a more future driven brand, if I say, use sharp lines, sharp, clear lines. But let's say if you want to use a gentler version, a more inclusive version, use curves in majorly. So these are some of the elements I want to talk about in this presentation. Any questions which you may have, please go ahead. And if you want to know more about anything, or you want me to cover anything else, please go ahead.
So I think I would like to congratulate Shubham for a fantastic presentation and clearing our doubts about what is a brand and how important it is for the impact sector. And I think the most interesting part, particularly for me, was the archetypes of branding when you were bringing in human analogies and personality types in defining branding, and also the last part, but not the least, about the brand principles on vision, personality, color, which is the palette, of course, etc., and the shape at last. So, because we have interspersed this with questions, I would make this last appeal to the audience. If there is any other question, you can pose this to Shubham, or we'll call this a wrap. Thanking him.
Those are there are a lot of questions which I can see in chat. Chidambaram sir is saying, besides choosing font, can be also font. I think you mean font. Choosing font, can we use creative? For example, a drop of oil in edible oil, for example, the word. Exactly, sir. Yeah, you can for sure. Creativity is up to your control. Just make sure that you are aligned with the central messaging which you want to have. Just make sure of that.
So I think we've taken the other questions, Shubham. So I want to congratulate you again, and the IRMA Alumni Association for organizing this event. And thank you, Ritesh and Nivedita. It was great hosting Shubham on the brand lesson workshop, and looking forward to many more. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for connecting everyone. Thank you, Mohan sir. Thank you, Seema. Thank you, Manish.
Thanks,
Thank you,
love.
Sunil. Thank you, Chidambaram. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Shubham and Love. It was a great session. I really enjoyed, every nugget of knowledge and great questions, Love. Must say that as well. And thank you, everyone, each and every participant here. Some of us who joined us at the beginning, and some of you also joined in later. So it turned out overall really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.